From BBC Learning English, this is Learning English from the News, our podcast about the news headlines.
In this programme, 1 year since the fall of the Assad government, Syria reflects.
Hello, I'm Georgie.
And I'm Phil.
In this programme, we look at one big news story and the vocabulary in the headlines that will help you understand it.
You can find all the vocabulary and headlines from this episode, as well as a worksheet, on our website, bbclearningenglish.com.
Okay, Phil, let's hear more about this story.
The 8th of December marked a year since Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad was forced to leave the capital Damascus. Assad's regime, or way of governing, was marked by civil war and brutal attacks on pro-democracy protesters.
Ahmed al-Shara became the country's president. Al-Shara is a former al-Qaeda fighter who led the rebel group which removed Assad from power.
In a speech to the nation on Monday, he promised to build a Syria for all Syrians, saying the country had broken away from its past of repression and violence.
Syrians gathered at home and abroad to celebrate the year anniversary of the fall of the Assad regime, whether they agree with President al-Shara or oppose him.
Let's have our first headline.
Okay, this one is from France 24. Taking stock of Shara's rule in Syria, 1 year after the fall of Assad.
And that headline again, from France 24, taking stock of Shara's rule in Syria, 1 year after the fall of Assad.
Now, this headline is about President Ahmed al-Shara's first year in office. We're looking at this phrase, take stock. Now, originally, take stock was about shop or business owners counting their goods or stock.
Yes, that's where the phrase take stock comes from, but it's evolved to have a more general meaning. If you take stock of something, it means you carefully evaluate or review a situation, for example, in life or work.
Right, so here in the headline, if you're taking stock of Shara's rule in Syria, you're looking back and evaluating how it's going. You're taking stock. And a year anniversary is a good time to do that.
Yes, it's often used when you stop and review things after a change, a problem, or a busy period.
Exactly. So another example, at the end of the 5-year project, the researchers took stock of their achievements.
We've had take stock, carefully evaluate or review a situation.
For example, when choosing a career, it's a good idea to take stock of what's important in life. This is Learning English from the News, our podcast about the news headlines. Today, we're talking about the fall of Syria's former president, Bashar al-Assad, 1 year on.
Since coming to power, Ahmed al-Shara has tried to build his reputation as a respectable leader and show that he has moved on from his jihadist past and has gained considerable international support.
Last month, he met with US President Donald Trump at the White House, who lifted sanctions on Syria. Sanctions can be financial penalties put on a country to make them obey international law.
Earlier this year, he became the first Syrian representative to address the United Nations General Assembly.
Syria, however, remains extremely poor and divided, with minorities still mistrusting the authorities.
And our next headline is about this. This is from The Guardian, a British newspaper. Can Syria's president turn wave of global goodwill into tangible results at home?
And that headline again, can Syria's president turn wave of global goodwill into tangible results at home? And that's from The Guardian.
Now, this headline has some interesting language. A wave of global goodwill refers to the international support that Syria has received. A wave of means there's a lot of it. But this time, we're looking at tangible.
Yes, tangible means real or noticeable. So the headline is asking whether the support from other countries will actually make a real difference to people in Syria.
Yes, Syrians may hear about the US lifting sanctions on their country, but until they experience a real change, for example, things getting cheaper in the shops, they may not feel that these results are tangible or something that they can experience themselves.
Some similar words to tangible are real, concrete, and noticeable, whereas words that mean the opposite are intangible and abstract.
For example, tangible evidence is something real and physical, like fingerprints or a video. Intangible evidence is something you can't touch, like a feeling or a belief.
We've had tangible, real, and noticeable.
For example, the training program showed tangible results in test scores. This is Learning English from the News from BBC Learning English. We're talking about the year anniversary of the fall of Assad's regime in Syria.
As we've heard, Syria's current president, Ahmed al-Shara, has been presenting himself as a respectable leader to the West.
But at home in Syria, there are weaknesses. Many Kurds, Druze and Christians find it hard to forget Shara's jihadist past.
There has also been violence. The UN Human Rights Office said that hundreds have been killed over the past year. Alawite, Druze, Christian and Bedouin communities were mainly affected by the violence, the organisation said.
Let's have our next headline, and this is from BBC News. Jeremy Bowen, Syria feels lighter without the Assad's crushing weight, but now there are new problems.
And that headline again from BBC News. Jeremy Bowen, Syria feels lighter without the Assad's crushing weight, but now there are new problems.
So, Jeremy Bowen is a BBC correspondent, and this article is giving his analysis on the situation in Syria. We're looking at the phrase crushing weight. Now, the literal meaning is about a weight that's so heavy it breaks, squashes or crushes anything underneath it.
Yes, but the phrase crushing weight is mostly used metaphorically. In the headline, the Assad family's crushing weight refers to the feeling of being oppressed or restricted by the family's strong control over the country.
Right, so crushing weight means a very heavy feeling of pressure or control that makes life feel difficult, even though there's no real physical weight.
Yes, we often hear it followed by the word of and an abstract noun like responsibility, emotional stress, or uncertainty. For example, she felt the crushing weight of guilt when she lost her grandmother's priceless ring.
And it's not something we use much in everyday speech. It sounds quite literary, so you might see it written in novels or poems.
We often use the concept of weight when talking about emotions. So if someone's in a stressful and emotional situation, you might say, "Wow, that sounds heavy. I'm sorry you're going through that."
We also have the expression, a weight off my shoulders, which refers to the relief you feel when an emotional problem is solved.
We've had crushing weight, a heavy feeling of pressure which makes life difficult.
For example, my manager gave me the project and now I'm feeling the crushing weight of responsibility to get this right.
That's it for this episode of Learning English from the News. We'll be back next week with another news story.
Try the worksheet on our website to test what you've learned. That's bbclearningenglish.com.
Now, you've just been practicing your listening skills, but if you want to practice your reading skills, try our series, The Reading Room. You can also find it on our website.
And you can also follow us on social media. Just search for BBC Learning English on your favourite platform.
Goodbye for now.
Bye.